Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Spartan.
And I'm Pudgy.
And we are back.
No, I'm doing it.
Oh, you don't remember then?
Yeah.
All right. Take two. Pudgy apparently has a surprise intro for me.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel.
I'm Spartan.
And I'm Pudgy. And today...
I knew you'd fuck it up.
just, just be patient with me. I won't take long, but it's worth it, trust me.
You gotta add this in. Oh man. If you guys wondering why I do the intros, this is why.
Okay. Yeah. It's just because it's going to be so funny. Yeah.
Oh, now you know it's gonna be shit.
Okay. Alright. So, can you just be mean to me?
I mean, I'd love to, but everyone in the comments is gonna cook shit.
Ooh. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel.
I'm Spartan. Dude, what's wrong with you, man? We're never gonna get this done. Also, you can deliver a shit joke.
Yeah. I just need to be serious. Why am I not serious? Wait, I am. Alright, this serious, because this is what's actually happening. Okay. Alright.
Oh my god, dude, you got problems.
Alright.
Can I do the intro and then you do your joke?
Okay, maybe.
Take number 2075. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Spartan.
Wait, just wait till I'm serious.
We'll be waiting here all day. I'm never recording
Stop making
anything.
jokes, stop making jokes.
I'm not, I'm frustrated.
Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Spartan.
And I'm Pudgy. And
You're an idiot, dude. She's been trying to say this joke for like an hour and and she's failed every single take.
it's not fair. I just want to say it. Okay.
At this stage, dude, laughing at you laugh is gonna be funnier than the actual joke.
I know. Alright. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel.
I'm Spartan.
And I'm Pudgy. Just wait a sec. And today we're watching season 7, episode 1. Psych.
Dude, that was your joke? You suck. Oh, my ears, dude.
No, we're not. We're not watching that.
That was your big joke. Guys, we've sat here with like 8 failed takes so she could psych you guys out and say, we're watching season 7, episode 1. No, we're not. We're watching season law.
Oh, okay.
Oh, dude.
That's all I wanted to say, but it wasn't even good.
Honestly, dude, it really wasn't worth it.
Alright, now that you know the joke, maybe I'll stop laughing.
The payoff really wasn't there.
Alright. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel.
I'm Spartan.
And I'm Pudgy. And today we're watching season 7, episode 1. No, we're not. Psych. I'm actually crying. Okay, I need to stop because it's too much. We're watching Histories and Law season 6.
Yes, and Pudgy thought that was going to be a good joke.
It was. Alright.
Now that we've sat here for about 10 minutes while Pudgy continuously laughed before delivering a joke that didn't land, we can get on to the actual product.
Can you guys let me know if you liked the joke or not? Just my delivery was shit.
So the joke, I'm assuming, was poking fun at the people that get annoyed that we're watching Histories and Law because they want to get to the episode, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the delivery was better and I didn't hear 10 failed attempts. It might have been a bit better, I don't know.
Oh.
Anyhow.
Anyway.
Histories and Law, season 6 today.
Yes.
This big beast is an hour 20. There are no known spoilers in this one, so we're going to watch it all the way through. Those of you who knows me know that my attention span can struggle with these. So I'm going to get as much as I can out of it. But yeah, if you see my eyes good and cross-eyed and stuff, I do genuinely enjoy the lore we get out of these. I just do find them long and a lot. You got to listen to a Pudgy knows me, right? I can't listen to someone talking for a long time without zoning out or getting distracted. I can watch an episode; it's different stimulation. But when it's purely talking, I do enjoy them. So let's clarify that. I get a lot out of these two because they enhance my understanding of the world
Look,
and lore.
they're lore heavy. It's hard.
They're just very lore heavy. So I'm gonna get as much out of it as I can.
Yeah.
Pudgy's got her notebook ready as well.
Just for my memory, which is shit. Just when I hear something that I like, I'll pop it down and then we can have a little chat about it.
Yeah, so you guys know the drill by now. Most people are enjoying this Histories and Lore, so we're going to do them all the way through. Next upload will be episode 1 of season 7. So for those of you who are excited for that, then stay tuned for that. But these are usually worth checking out too. We usually have some really good discussions in between a lot of the things that are revealed as well.
Yeah, and a lot of you are watching it for the first time through our eyes, which is also fun.
For those that are interested, we do post several episodes ahead over on our Patreon, as well as our uncut reactions. So if you're interested in any of that, we'll drop a link in our description. If you're watching this over on YouTube and you enjoyed today's reaction, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for more Game of Thrones content, and let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And let us know if this is your first time watching along with us, because the number of people that are doing that seems to be growing, and it's always interesting to us. That's pretty cool.
All right, let's go.
Let's get into it.
The Doom took Valyria in minutes, but the rest of Essos wasn't so lucky.
This drawer.
Right into it, yeah.
Out of these swarmed the Dothraki, and there were no dragons to push them back. The Dothraki tide slammed first into the Sarnori, who called themselves the Tall Men, and whose ancient kingdom dominated the grasslands of Essos. The Tall Men at first scorned
The
the
music's cool.
Horse Lords as
Very cool,
uncivilized
yeah.
barbarians, which they were. But Carl Mengo had united all of them into one
Carl
Khalasar
Mengo.
with one aim,
Mango. What
to
a name.
trample the world beneath their hooves and take other peoples as their herd. One by one, the cities of the Tall Men
Right.
were overwhelmed.
So straight
Still,
into
they
the
wouldn't
lore of it.
unite
Like,
against the Dothraki. Many didn't believe the tales of the rare survivors. No army could move so fast or strike so quickly. They didn't know that the Dothraki
Danny's the
live in
survivor.
the saddle and have such command over their horses that they seem to have 4 legs, not 2. Where most archers fire from foot, the Dothraki fire from horseback. Charging or retreating,
Right.
it makes no matter, they are just as deadly. But the
That's what
Dothraki
Tolman was saying
prefer
with their
close
battle.
combat,
Yeah.
howling for blood.
well, we
as
can
they
look out
ride
for that
down
when
their
Danny
enemies with their
uses the army in season 7.
There were so many of them. When Carl Mango's son, Carl Moro, laid waste to the waterfall city of Sathar, renaming it the Place of Wailing Children, the Tall Men finally realized their peril. Led by a High King, they assembled a great army to break the Khals once and for all, and met the Dothraki on what would ever after be known as
Is that the
Field
Unsullied?
of Crows. The 4 Khals
that the what?
commanded
Field of
almost
Crows.
80,000 horsemen between them. The Tall Men had 100,000 foot soldiers, 10,000 armored riders, 10,000
Wow.
light horsemen, and 6,000
Shit.
scythe chariots.
It's a big
As
battle,
was
dude.
joined, the earth-shattering advance of the Tall Men's chariots smashed through the center of the Dothraki horde, the spinning blades on their wheels slicing through the legs of the Dothraki horses.
Oh, yeah, true.
Wow.
When Carl went down before
'cause they've got
them, cut
blades.
to pieces and trampled, his Khalasar broke and fled. The chariots
Oh,
thundered
wow.
after the fleeing horsemen.
They
and
beat
the
them
High
with
King and his
technology.
armored riders plunged in after them, followed by their foot soldiers waving their spears and screaming in victory. But it was a trap. The Dothraki were not fleeing, as the Tall Men realized when the Horse Lords suddenly turned their horses and unleashed a storm of arrows.
Oh,
Two
shit.
Khalasar swept down on the Tall Men's flanks, but another
Quite
attacked
smart.
them from the rear, cutting off their retreat. Completely encircled, the High King and his mighty hosts were destroyed. The Tall Men had stood for thousands of years. Now the crows feasted on their corpses.
No
as the
longer.
Dothraki squabbled over their valuables.
Wow,
The
dude, they
common
annihilated
wisdom
them.
is that the Dothraki tide finally broke upon the spears of the Unsullied at Quohor, saving Essos from the Horse Lords. In truth, the days when the Dothraki could threaten the entire world had already passed. The great Khalasar forged by Carl Mengo had splintered into a dozen hordes after the death of the last great Carl, and the
Oh.
riders
So they were
had
one
resumed their
big-
petty feuds.
So Danny's the first one
The
to do it
grasslands
again.
of Essos are
Yeah,
now called the
true,
Dothraki
wow.
Sea, but no more nations drown in it. Still, the Dothraki priestesses, the Dosh Kalin, prophesied that one day the Dothraki will gather at Vaes Dothrak, their holy capital, and unite once more under the greatest Khal of them all, the stallion
Danny.
who mounts the world.
Oh.
He will lead their people to the ends of the earth and grind all nations to dust beneath them. I knew a Khaleesi who the priestesses said would give birth to this stallion. She didn't. No doubt
she
that
did.
Oscaline had made the same prophecy
dragons.
before and will again. World conquest is an alluring dream, but few who dream it ever wake to its reality. Yet could the Dothraki, united behind one great leader, conquer the world? When I first came to Essos, I laughed at the
Better
idea.
visuals, this one as well.
But now, most armies are either sellswords, paid to fight, who often refuse to die, or peasants called up from the fields and hovels. How long would those armies stand against the charge of 100,000 screamers howling for blood? How well would boiled leather jerkins and mailed shirts protect them when
I
the
would assume
arrows
not
fall
that
like
well.
rain?
Yeah, wow.
Okay.
That's crazy. So we literally got the whole history. I didn't know that they, or maybe I did and I just forgot that they were one big hall.
I don't think we ever got that introduced. Because
No.
we got them introduced as,
Separate.
yeah. So that's, threw us right in there. That law, I was like, oh, we're right into it. But that was actually quite an interesting little history lesson on the battles.
Yeah. And it's interesting. They prophesize that a Khaleesi will give birth to a Khal who is worthy.
Well, they
but-
didn't say a Carl, they said a stallion that would mount the world.
yes.
And then ended up being her dragons. They just didn't know what that looked like.
Well, I feel like Danny, not just her dragons. You
Well,
know.
maybe she's the stallion. Because isn't a
Yeah.
stallion somebody who mounts something?
A stallion is a male horse.
I'm just thinking about it because that might have interpreted as somebody's going to ride their horse to the promised land or victory, whereas she's ended up riding the dragons, something even greater.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know.
I don't know.
But by any means, they mean Danny. Well, Jorah means Danny. And it's great. And she did give birth to that in the sense of she was reborn when she stepped into that fire and hatched those dragon eggs. So, yeah, I love that little symbolism. At least that's how I took it. So,
Awesome.
As a boy, even I dreamed sometimes of being not a Stark of Winterfell, but a Dane of Starfall. Legend has it that the Dornish founder of House Dane followed a falling star to where it hit the ground, and there he
Who's that
raised
voice?
his castle.
I'm trying to think.
A fantastic story, I know, but House Dane has a relic to prove it. Dorn, the most famous sword in Westeros. Forged from the fallen star's cold heart, and as strong and sharp as Valyrian steel.
oh,
Many
wow.
houses have ancestral swords passed from father to eldest son, like my own family's Ice. But Dorn doesn't pass to the Lord of House Dane by right.
Who has eyes?
To wield Dorn, a knight of their house must first be deemed worthy. It doesn't matter if he's the Lord, a younger brother, or a distant cousin. If none are found to be worthy, the blade stays on the mantle in Starfall until the next generation.
Interesting,
But Dorn
okay.
hasn't rested there often. From House Dane have risen some of the greatest warriors in Westeros. Vorian Dane, who was a king and the greatest knight in Dorne before he was defeated by Nymeria. Because of his honour and his
go on,
prowess,
Nymeria.
she sent him to the wall in golden fetters and took his heir as her husband. Joffrey,
Oh, shit.
who answered Aegon the Conqueror's demand to submit by invading Aegon's 7 kingdoms and marching an army to the gates of Old Town, where Aegon had been crowned. And the greatest of them all, Sir Arthur Dane,
Yeah, that's the one that we.
Arthur
Sword of the Morning. During the reign of the Mad King, a band of outlaws calling themselves the Kingswood Brotherhood terrorized the forest outside of King's Landing. Every force sent after them either returned empty-handed or vanished into the woods, never to be seen again. The king was furious and dispatched Sir Arthur of his own Kingsguard to deal with the threat. Sir Arthur didn't put the villagers to the question or set fire to the woods to smoke out the Brotherhood, as other forces had done.
What do you do?
He paid the small folk for the food his men ate, brought their grievances to the king, even won them the right to take a few of the king's deer during the autumn.
All
The
right.
forest folk had looked to
Befriended
the
them.
outlaws to defend them, but Sir Arthur did more for them than the outlaws could ever hope to do. When a villager
Wonder
led Sir
why.
Arthur and his knights to the outlaws' secret camp, the Brotherhood, to their credit, didn't flee. One of their leaders, the Smiling Knight was a madman.
Smiling
Cruelty
Knight.
and honor jumbled together.
Like the
But he didn't
Joker.
know fear. Not even when Sir Arthur drew Dawn before him.
Interesting.
Soon the outlaw's longsword had so many notches that Sir Arthur stopped to let him fetch a new one. The robber knight chose another and then asked for Dawn. Sir Arthur replied, "Then you shall have it." The Smiling Knight never smiled again. The mad fool.
I mean, he died
Damn.
smiling.
Dawn is just a sword. Sir Arthur was the true steel. Strong, brave, and loyal to a fault. He would never have aided Rhaegar's abduction of my sister if his vows hadn't compelled him.
Which we
Though
saw
we fought
that.
on
Alright.
opposite sides, I admired him. When I was younger, I wanted to be him. Every boy did.
It must be Ned's brother or something then.
I killed
Said
him.
Rhaegar's abduction of my sister.
Not in single combat, but as he was on his knees, a dagger in his back. I'll never forget. the
Oh,
look
that's
in
young
his
Ned.
eyes. He wasn't angry
It's young Ned's voice.
or betrayed. He'd done his duty to the last, even though he found it dishonourable, and even though he knew what awaited me in that tower.
Okay, so he didn't enjoy that task.
Sir Arthur Dane died the greatest knight who ever lived.
Oh
After
yeah, and
Robert's
that's why, because
coronation,
Ned's
I returned
Sword
Dawn
is
to
ice.
Starfall. One day, House Dane will raise a worthy successor to Sir Arthur. Until then, Dawn gathers dust above the fire, with the dream of every boy in Westeros.
Wow,
wow.
damn.
Okay, yeah, I thought the voice sounded familiar. I knew we had heard it in the last season. So yeah, young Ned. Which is interesting. So Ned was worthy of ice, which is nice, but no one has been worthy ever since Sir Arthur Dane for Dawn, I think it's
Well, it's
called.
questionable if Ned was worthy because we now know that Ned beat Arthur Dane by stabbing him in the back. It wasn't an honourable way to win a fight. You know,
Yeah.
he didn't truly beat him in combat.
But no one said worthy was honourable. I don't know if they go hand in hand in this.
My
world.
interpretation of being a worthy knight is
Yeah.
proving yourself in combat, and I would argue that that battle that quote unquote seems to define Ned, he didn't really prove himself.
But I do think that it's very black and white in this world and in real life. So being worthy, yeah, sure, but you're gonna have to get your hands dirty at some point, I think, especially in war. So,
Yes.
and when you want to protect the people that you love,
Yes.
kill or be killed.
We'll agree to disagree.
Okay.
You guys can let us know what you think. Okay, thanks to one of the helpful comments on the video, we have tracked down who's doing what, because in this new Histories and Law, they don't have the names. So, yeah, that was indeed Ned Stark. And then this one is going to be The Old Way by Euron Greyjoy. So we're
Or,
going to hear
as we
from
know
our
him,
Euron.
urine.
We're going to hear from our friend Euron. All right, let's go.
All across the Iron Islands, men sit around driftwood fires and drink to the old way. When the Ironborn were feared, wherever the waves were heard. When our strength was in our ships, not our stories. I don't blame them. Drinking to the old way is easier than living it. Our
Which I
ancestors
get.
took to the sea because the Iron Islands are shit without the crops that grow from it. 30 cold, wet rocks off the coast of Westeros, and a dozen more cluster
visuals are pretty
around
cool.
the
They've gotten a lot
lonely light
better.
deep in the Sunset Sea. But hard places breed hard men. The first men feared.
That is
That's
true.
true.
They had walked to Westeros, and even their fishermen never left sight of shore. I wish I could have seen the face of the first watchman to see our ships climb over the horizon. He was not the last. No matter how dark the night, or how high the waves, come dawn our prows cut through the morning mist and struck the beaches and riverbanks. Before the sun reached its height, we vanished again into the sea. Our longships filled with gold, food, scared children, and sobbing women.
Wow.
For thousands of years, the Ironborn reaped up and down the Sunset Sea, driving the men of the Greenlands far inland, or into walled castles where they paid us tribute.
So they were very feared.
In the depth of winter, we feasted, while the men who had planted and harvested crops starved. Their sons worked our mines, and their daughters warmed our
Rough.
beds.
Always the rough scenes.
The stories claim that the old way died with
This
Heron
one's
the
really
Black
dark.
and his sons at Harrenhal. Our ships and axes were no match for Aegon's dragons, so our ancestors bent their steel into fishhooks and our kingdom into villages, and started telling the red tales around the fire. of how we used to be strong. and
Yes,
how
that's when
one
it all
day we'll
stopped.
be so again. Generations later, a young boy
Oh, it's
listened
got
to
that
them,
Los Angeles
indulged in
music.
Greyjoy. The wild young heir to Pike was rowing at 5 and reeving at 10 in the Basilisk Isles
Wow.
with his uncle. By 14, Dalton had sailed as far as Old Geese, fought in a dozen battles, and claimed 4 salt wives. In his 15th year, he avenged his uncle's death in battle, but he took a dozen wounds and emerged from the fight, drenched head to heel in blood. From
Shit.
that day forth, men called him the Red Kraken. During the
Red
Dance
Kraken.
of Dragons,
Worthy
the
of the
Red
title,
Kraken
it
picked the
seems.
side that was fighting the Lannisters and fell upon the
Oh.
Westerlands while the Lannisters were up at war.
Epic.
Casterly Rock itself proved too strong once the lady of the castle barred its gates. But the Ironborn burned the Lannister fleet and sacked Lannisport, carrying off gold, grain, and hundreds of women and girls.
Oh, wow.
including
Damn.
Lord Lannister's favorite mistress and all his bastards. The Red
Shit.
Kraken now ruled the Sunset Sea as his forebears had, and his longships again brought the old way to the coast of Westeros. But then the war ended, and the mainland armies came home. The Iron Throne commanded the Red Kraken to stop reaving, and when he didn't, a mistress opened his throat as he slept.
Oh,
his
How
sons
can the guy's
fought,
been doing it since he's 5?
Lannisters sent
Yeah.
their soldiers to the Iron Islands. Thousands of men, women, and children were put to the sword, and scores of villages and hundreds of longships
Wow.
were put to the torch.
He got
The
screwed over
glorious
bad.
return to the old way had lasted almost 2 years. My brother vowed to return us to the old way as well. He sat on the salt throne
Lord
and
Balon.
sent our reavers to the shores of Westeros, just as he remembered from the stories he heard as a child.
So he
An old way
despises
for
him.
an old man. But while he listened to the stories, I lived them. It was
Yeah.
never the old way to me. It was the only way.
I get his perspective.
Okay, interesting. Very dark. A lot of lore in that, but it does give me a bit more familiarity with Euron as well, which is kind of nice because we found him very weird and random.
Yeah.
But I can see going into season 7, just that little bit of analysis from him and what drives him.
Yeah.
So okay, there's a bit more to him, you know.
Yeah.
That's where these history and lore help.
Which it was actually interesting because Danny said to Yara and Theon, no more
Reaving
raping and
Yeah, everything,
whatever.
thieving and stuff.
Yeah, which is their way of life, which is the way of life that Euron is trying to live for.
Yeah, so he's screwed. Danny's gonna burn him to the ground,
Yeah,
pretty much.
pretty much. Yeah, she's going to have none of that. So although he's been added to the mix like a threat, I don't feel him as a threat.
Yep.
But I understand him a little more.
Okay, so this one is Northern Allegiances to House Stark by Sansa Stark. Okay.
It's going to be interesting hearing her for the first time, like, with a solid strength.
The North is the oldest and largest of the Seven Kingdoms, but House Stark has not always held it. When Bran the Builder raised Winterfell and founded our line, we were vassals to the Barrow Kings, who claimed descent from the first king and thus dominion over all the first men. But after the long night, it was our house who built the wall and set the Night's Watch to guard the realms of men,
Oh, wow.
whilst our king
Wow, okay.
sat in his barrow. My ancestors eventually revolted, waging what singers call the 1,000 Years' War, to free our lands. Other families joined us, recognizing that the North is a cold and hard land and needed a king who served its people before himself. Finally,
Love it.
the last Barrow King bent the knee, and House Stark became the Kings of Winter.
I love what Stark stand for.
Yet we were kings in name only, for by then the North had fractured into petty kingdoms, and my ancestors would struggle to unite it again for thousands of years. Roderick
Right.
Stark wrestled an Ironborn lord for Bear Island and granted it to House Mormont when he won. A younger son of our family, Carlon Stark, won his own keep after he put down a rebellion and founded House Karstark, one of the most powerful.
Oh,
Right, okay.
When the
Stark, Stark, I
Manderleys
didn't
were exiled
realise.
from the Reach, my ancestors shielded them and gave them a home at the mouth of the White Knife, in return for holding the river against pirates and invaders. Now they're one of the wealthiest houses in the north. I'm not so naive to pretend that the entire north welcomed Stark rule.
Not
The last
anymore.
Wall King was slain at Sea Dragon Point along with all his sons and beasts. The last Marsh King died at the hands of King Rickard Stark, and House Reed has held the swamps of the Neck ever since. Houses Greenwood, Towers, Amber, Frost. None survive today as more than names in dusty old.
So
Oh, wow.
she's done
But my ancestors never wanted to destroy their foe's root and stem. The Umbers of Last Hearth and the Glovers of Deepwood Motte bent the knee and became loyal vassals of House Stark. The Red Kings of House Bolton wore cloaks made from the skins of Stark princes they'd flayed. And one
Oh,
my
of them
of course it
God.
was.
even known as the Red Arm, because he liked to plunge an arm into the bellies of captive Starks and pull out their entrails with his bare hand.
Oh,
they're
disgusting.
all
North
Thing.
deserved to be wiped clean of them.
100%.
Yet my ancestors spared them after their defeat because they believed
Why?
the North couldn't afford to fight itself any longer.
Mistake.
Time soon
Big
proved
mistake.
them
Kill
right.
Boltons.
When the Andals swept into Westeros, they obliterated all the kingdoms of the First Men except the North. Each of the southern kingdoms fought the invaders on its own, but the North fought as one.
I love
When
that.
the Andals tried to sail up the White Knife, the Manderleys fell on their ships. When the Andals tried to march an army through the Neck, the Reeds fell on their soldiers. King Theon Stark even sailed his own army to the
Theon
Andal
Stark.
homeland for vengeance and slew hundreds of Andal warriors.
Oh, wow.
When he
Jeez.
returned, he planted their heads on spikes along our coasts. A
Wow.
warning to other would-be conquerors. The warning was heeded for thousands of years, until Aegon the Conqueror. The south had already fallen to Aegon and his dragons, only the north remained. My ancestor, King Torrhen Stark, marched the north down to the Trident and beheld Aegon's army, larger than Torrhen's own by half, and with 3 dragons circling overhead. Many
Crazy.
Northern bannermen wanted to attack anyway, claiming Northern valor would carry the day. Others wanted to fall back to Moat Cailin and make a stand there. But Torrhen had heard how the armies of the Rock and the Reach had burned on the field of fire, and had seen the fires still glowing beneath the rubble of Harrenhal.
Yeah.
He knelt and laid his ancient crown at Aegon's feet, and rose a king no more but Lord of Winterfell and Warden of
So that's
the
when they
North.
stopped being kings of the North.
Some Northerners still sneer at my ancestor as the king who knelt, forgetting that because of Torrhen, they're alive today to sneer.
Yeah, I know.
Their
Like, come
ancestors
on.
didn't leave their burned bones at the Trident, and their twisted swords didn't fill Aegon's new throne. Now many say that House Stark is dead and gone, and House Bolton holds the North. But
Nope.
the North remembers who united it. The North remembers who defended it, and the
Oh, her
North
hair's
remembers
out?
who stole it.
And we
Long
remember
ago,
who
my
just
ancestors
won it back at the
spared
end.
The Boltons, trusting their oaths of fealty. I shall correct that mistake.
Yes.
Even the
Oh,
North
man.
can forget when there's nothing left to remember.
Oh. I love that from Sansa.
Oh, that was badass. That was badass.
So good. The North does remember, despite what you just said about them forgetting. But yes, I am looking forward to Sansa's arc. And I just love the strength she has. Like, from an annoying little girl, I really didn't like her at the start.
Yeah, neither.
And I actually read an interesting comment the other day where Sansa really, you can really tell where her alliance is by her hair. She really puts her hairstyles to mimic the people that she wants to become at that time.
Yeah, I read that too, yeah.
And she's really trying to figure out who she is and what she wants to do and be. And I think that's a really beautiful way of showing her character development. And yeah, I love it. That's why her hair is such like this household name, essentially. It's like its own character in a way, and I love it.
Okay, so this one is going to be House Tarly by Randall Tarly. Let's get into it.
Most houses take wild beasts for their sigils, calling themselves bears, lions, or stags, as if a cloth banner could make them so. That isn't the way of House Tarly.
Okay, I like that.
Is the huntsman pulling his bow, and it isn't some idle fancy. As soon as a son of
reality.
House Tarly can hold a spoon, he gets a bow. As soon as the boy
That's
gives
why
her a horse,
Sam was
his
such a
father
disgrace to
takes him
him,
on a
but-
hunt. They return with a
yeah.
stag, a buck, a boar, a brace of pheasant, even if it takes days. Even if it takes a week.
Almost like
Even if it
Spartan
takes
warriors.
the boy's whole life.
Damn.
Yeah, wow,
Hill
okay.
is ours.
Breeding
A
as strong as
fitting home
everything.
for one of the oldest and most honorable families of the Reach. Legend has it that Harlan the Hunter and Herndon of the Horn, two sons of Garth the Greenhand, raised the castle in the Age of Heroes and shared a home and a wife for 100 years.
Oh, wow.
Most of
They
the
shared.
great houses spout such nonsense about their origins. At least my family doesn't claim some long-lost ancient crown like the rest of them. House Tarley breeds soldiers, not kings.
Okay.
When House
I don't mind
Gardner
that, to be
ruled the
fair.
Reach, we served them well and loyally.
Oh, House Gardener.
When House Gardner died, and Aegon gave the Reach to their stewards, the Tyrells, we served them well and loyally. We know our place, even if the Tyrell women don't.
Okay.
Oh.
When Aegon's
Interesting.
son faced rebellion from the Vulture King of Dawn, my ancestor, Savage Sam Tarly, led the royal forces on a vulture hunt.
Oh, was Sam named after
Heartsbane,
him?
our
Yeah, I was-
ancestral
didn't play out that way.
Valyrian sword and the pride of our house soon ran red from point to hilt with rebel blood. When Robert Baratheon rebelled against Aerys, I led the Tyrell van and handed him his only defeat in the war at Ashford.
Yeah,
Shit.
crazy.
But a hunter knows that a moment's slip can cost him the game. Great houses have fallen from a single weak heir.
Oh, there's Sammy.
Looked like a son when he was born, but he grew
Aww.
up plump and soft as a daughter. I'd catch him in the kitchen shoving cakes into his ever-growing mouth, or reading in the garden when he was supposed to be training. I brought masters at arms from all over Westeros to make a man of him. He slept in chainmail, bathed in bull's blood,
Shit.
was dressed in his mother's clothes and paraded through the castle to shame him into valor.
Oh my god.
And more craven.
Yeah, to be fair, that's not gonna
I
help.
despaired of the future of our
tried,
house until
but he
my
couldn't
wife
turn him
gave
into a
me
warrior.
another boy, Dickon, a real son and worthy heir. Or he would have been if Sam wasn't squatting in his way. One morning I had Sam brought into the woods outside the castle. I told him he'd given me no cause to disown him, but Heartsbane should go to a man strong enough to wield her.
Yeah,
And
Sammy.
Sam wasn't
Killed a
worthy
White
to
Walker.
touch her hilt.
And then.
Either he would take the black and renounce all claim to his brother's sword and title, or I would hunt him down like the pig he was.
That's
Shit.
disgusting.
Pretty
Of
brutal.
course, faced with danger and exertion, he chose the coward's path
Damn, dude.
and waddled north to the wall.
There's no remorse for him.
To be fair,
Some may call me
why would he
cruel
choose to be
for what I
hunted?
did, but I don't care. I am responsible for House Tarly, as my father was before me and his father before him. If the hunter returns with empty hands, his family starves. If the warrior carries an empty scabbard, his home burns.
I mean, I get a bit of an
House
insight into his
Tarly
leadership.
stood for thousands of
Given their
years.
ways, he sort of had to
Will
do
not
that.
fall on my watch. No matter how many tears my family sheds.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is sort of the leader path. He's having to
Make
go
the
to
hard
hell,
decisions.
become the devil for the greater cause in that sense. So I can understand that from a battle or conquest position.
Yeah, I get a little bit of insight into his perspective and why he did the things that he did. I obviously don't agree with it, but I get it. These are hard times, right? But I don't get when he says, Sammy chose the coward's path when he took the black. I mean, his only other option was to get hunted.
Yeah, I get it, because he almost, if he stood up and fought, it would have given him more respect.
Yeah.
Where if he chose to run away again, take the easy way out,
I
I'll
know,
just
but
run
his
away.
father knew that he wasn't strong enough to survive.
Yeah, but not trying to. You're looking into it now from the wrong lens. The point is, that's what he wanted. If Sammy had stood up and fought, and maybe become a man then and there, he might have not hunted him down. You know, who knows?
Yeah.
He's just saying, no matter whenever he's faced with a challenge, you can look at other characters like Jon Snow. Look at Jon Snow, you know, at the finale of season 6, on his own against the whole army. Like, that's the kind of courage he's looking for.
Yeah, true.
Versus hunted down by one man and you ran away. Well, that's not the courage of a warrior who's prepared to give his whole life to the cause.
Yeah, fair enough.
So this part is going to be Robert's Rebellion by Jaime Lannister, which will be an interesting perspective.
Okay, Robert's Rebellion again. Tell us something we don't know,
Kingslayer.
Jamie.
A word every man and woman in Westeros spits at me, though many can't even name the king I slayed. I understand. To them, I'm a symbol of everything they'll never have and a warning that'll never apply, so they can loathe me from the safety of their small lives. But when a dog goes mad, we put it down. Why not a king? I was never
True.
supposed to be on the King's Guard. Oh, as a boy, I dreamed of the White Cloak like all boys, but I was heir to Tywin Lannister, Hand of the King. If he forbade the tides, the waves would cease. Then I was 15, and my father was congratulating me on my new knighthood in the Red Keep. I wonder if that was the last time he was proud of me. That night, there was a
damn.
knock on my door, and I opened it to find my sister Cersei disguised as a simple servant girl. I hadn't seen her since my father had taken her to court when she was 12. She had grown up, as had I. She
Oh,
told
okay,
me that my
interesting.
father planned to marry me off to Lysa Tully, but she could arrange for the king to raise me to the King's Guard so I could stay in the city with her. All I had to do was agree.
Oh.
I made the obvious objections. Our family, our father, Casterly Rock.
Even from back
Until she
then, dude,
asked-
she was snaking around.
Is it a rock you want? Or me? Come more.
Typical Cersei
she had my
question.
Consent. I would join the King's Guard for her. I would forswear my lands and title for
Everything was for
her.
her.
forsake
He's
our
gone
family
through so much for her,
for
dude.
her. Soon, a royal raven commanded my father to present me to the king during the great tourney at Harrenhal to say my vows.
So she's the reason your father hated you.
My father erupted in fury. He could not object openly, but he resigned the handship and returned to Casterly Rock, taking Cersei with him. Instead of being together, Cersei and I exchanged places.
Oh,
Then
yeah, shit.
Everything started to fall apart. At Harrenhal, King Aerys made a great show of my investiture. I knelt before him in gleaming armor and swore the oath of the King's Guard. When Sir Gerald Hightower raised me up and put the white cloak on my shoulders, a roar went up from the crowd.
And
I
Cersei
did.
wasn't even there. That was
Despite
the whole
my
point.
father's anger, I was happy and foolish. That very night, Aerys soured, commanding me to return to the Red Keep to guard the Queen and little Prince Viserys. Sir Gerald offered to take that duty himself so I might compete in the tourney, but Aerys refused. He'll win no glory here, the king said. He's mine now, not Tywin's. He'll serve as I see fit. That was when I
Oh,
understood.
shit.
It was not my skill or valor that had won me this honor. The Mad King had chosen me to spite my father and steal his heir.
Yeah.
I wanted to rip off the white cloak, but it was too late. A King's Guard serves for life. So I upheld
That's a
my
shit
oath,
burden to
confined
carry.
to the Red Keep where Varys could watch me and where the headsman could find me if my father displeased the king. I served the king's pleasure as he burned Rickard Stark alive and strangled his son, inciting the
Bloody
rebellion.
hell. Horrendous.
I defended the king's honor against courtiers as his generals lost battle after battle with Robert. I kept the king's secrets when his pyromancers hid caches of wildfire beneath King's Landing. I gave the king counsel when my father's
Guess
army
what?
was
Your
at the
sister
city,
used it.
and Grand Maester Pycelle lied that my father had come to save him. Many forget that I also tried to defend the king from harm. When the Lannister soldiers poured through the gates, it fell to me to hold the Red Keep as the only King's Guard in the city. I knew we were lost and sent to Aerys, asking his leave to make terms. My man came back with a royal command. Bring me your father's head if you are no traitor.
Oh, man.
Aerys would
Screwed.
have no yielding. His pyromancer was with him, my messenger said. I knew what that meant.
Yeah,
Aerys
true.
Targaryen was alone in his throne room when I found him, picking at his scabbed and bleeding hands. The
Ew.
fool was always cutting himself on the Iron Throne.
Right, the bad luck.
Not
Kept
fit.
muttering. Aerys had decided to let Robert be king after all, over the charred bones and ashes of King's Landing. He must have thought his pyromancer was near enough to obey him, but I'd killed him a few minutes before in the courtyard. As I approached the throne, Sanity flashed behind the king's eyes for a moment, just long enough to read the look in mine. His eyes grew huge and the royal mouth drooped open in shock. He turned and ran. A single thrust was all it took to end the greatest dynasty the world had ever seen.
Damn.
Beneath the empty eyes of the dead dragons on the walls, the last Dragon King squealed like a pig and shat himself. So easy, I thought. A king should die harder than this. My father's knights burst into the hall
Yeah,
in
everything
time
they're
see the
built up
last
to
of it,
be.
so there was no way for me to vanish and let some braggart steal the glory or blame. I knew at once when I saw the way they looked at me, it would be blame. Lannister or no, I'd been one of Aerys' Kingsguard. I commanded them to announce that the Mad King was dead and to spare all those who yielded. They asked me if they should proclaim a new king as well. I knew what they meant. Would it be my father, or Robert Baratheon, or maybe the child Viserys who'd fled to Dragonstone? A Targaryen boy king with my father's hand to rule in truth. I thought of how Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon would howl at this end to their great heroic war, and I was tempted. Then I glanced down again at Aerys, his life's blood oozing from the wound and pooling on the floor around him. Proclaim who you bloody well like, I said.
Yeah,
Climbed the
okay.
steps to the Iron Throne and sat on it with my sword across
Oh,
my knees,
mad.
waiting to see who would come to claim the kingdom.
Interesting.
Okay, damn.
I mean, we got a little bit of extra details about how it all went down. Nothing that we haven't heard before, but yeah, interesting hearing from his perspective again.
Behind the scenes, Jamie, yeah.
Yeah. I thought I'm actually really intrigued just to see, because you see in this rendition how much he despises the Mad King, especially with, you know, all the pyromancer stuff and the wildfire. So the fact that his sister did exactly that, what the Mad King was planning to do, I'm really interested to see Jaime's perspective now on that. We saw them share a glance while Cersei was getting crowned queen, but not much else. So I'm excited for season 7 for that reason. So this next one is The King's Moot by Euron Greyjoy.
Westeros has 7 kingdoms, but the Iron Islands have hundreds. Every ship on the waves is a kingdom, and every captain on his deck is a king. Mainlanders will bow to a man whose only claim is dropping out of the right cunt. But the Ironborn spend their lives at sea. We know that if a captain is weak, his men drown. If he's foolish, his men drown. But if he's strong, his men carve their names into the world with blood, steel, and song. Any man with a ship may claim the Salt Throne, but the rest of the Ironborn have to give it to him in the King's Moot.
I don't mind that, to
Our
be fair.
priests claim the first king of the Iron Islands was the Grey King, who ruled over the sea itself in the dawn of days. He took a mermaid to wife and stole fire from the storm god.
I love them,
and
their
carved
myths.
the
They always
first
glorify
ship from a
everything.
demon tree that fed on human flesh. When he died, his 100 sons slaughtered each other until only 16
100
remained.
sons.
Since none
Jeez.
could overpower the rest in battle, they came together and chose the strongest to be their king. And so began the tradition of the King's Moot.
He doesn't believe it.
Good story for children who don't know that grey is what men become after their strength has fled, or that brothers do not easily submit. Over the centuries, the King's Moot has raised the greatest of the Ironborn. Corrid Horror, whose word was law whenever men could smell the salt air or hear the crash of waves. He sacked Old Town and defeated the River King, taking 3 young sons as hostages. When their father's tribute was laid, Corrid cut out their hearts with his own hand. When the father marched for vengeance, Corrid smashed his army and gave this River King to the drowned god. Harwin Horror, born to a king who had a fleet he didn't sail and swords he didn't blood. As an unruly and worthless youngest son,
Not really
Harwin was
worthy.
sent away to the east to vanish, and so he did. But when his father died, Harwin returned to the Iron Islands for the King's Moot. An elder brother objected, so an elder brother fell off a horse, and at the King's Moot no man objected. Harwin launched
Shit.
his father's ships for Westeros and took 10 times the Iron Islands from its weak lords, who never expected to face an Ironborn king as skilled on land as at sea. For Harwin had reaved with Eastern pirates and served with Eastern sellswords and learned more of war than the Ironborn could imagine.
Right, okay.
After Aegon and his dragons burned our last king, Harren
That's
the
what
Black,
Euron
and
did,
broke our
essentially.
armies, the defeated Ironborn chose my ancestor, Rickon Greyjoy, as Lord of the Iron Islands, not king. For centuries after, the Kingswood was a joke that the Ironborn didn't get. When a Lord Greyjoy died, the captains would meet and choose his eldest son to succeed him. Of course, they argued over it
Okay.
just long enough to show they weren't.
So it's not so
now
much who's
like the
worthy,
very
it's just the
mainlanders
next
they despised.
generation.
Once more, we have a true king, my own brother Balon, who had the balls to seize the Driftwood crown, but not the brains to hold it. He's the first king the Iron Islands have had in centuries, and the fool would be the last. The Kingswood once chose him over me. They will not have that choice next time.
Back with vengeance.
Yeah, man's come for blood.
Literally.
There's a lot of Iron Islands hype in this. They're really trying to build it up. I assume it's going to be a big part of season 7.
Yeah, well, if the guy thinks he can get Dany,
Yeah,
like,
which won't work.
the guy's mistaken, but I want to see how it pans out for him, to be fair. I mean, yeah, we're getting a lot of insight into Euron. I mean, he looks up to this guy. I don't remember, he's a Harold or something like that. He really looks up to him because he fled to Essos to vanish, and he learnt the way of the sword and things like that from them. And as we know, Essos has a lot of different styles of fighting. So yeah, he kind of broadened his horizons and learnt a lot more and then came back stronger than ever. So that's who he, I guess, wants to be like. Okay, so we've just taken a small break and we're going to jump right back into it.
I
So,
think this is the first time I've worn a jumper on the channel for a very long time.
yeah, it's been a while.
Winter now here, so it's getting cold.
I know, I'm getting pale, I'm losing the colour. So this is Knights of the Vale from Peter Littlefinger Baelish. Always interesting to hear from this guy.
No army in the Seven Kingdoms can match the pride and chivalry.
Guys, I didn't have my headphones in. My earphones. Oh my god, we're a mess today. We're a mess.
Of the Knights of the Vale. After all, they were the first true knights in Westeros. The Knights of the Vale were originally the Knights of Andalos, an eastern nation whose people invaded Westeros thousands of years ago. From the sea, the Vale seemed to the Andals an ideal new home, a wide, fertile valley isolated from the rest of Westeros and its kingdoms by a great mountain range. The first men who held it, moreover, were sparse and divided, and waded into battle with bronze axes and armor that couldn't match Andal horses and steel. But what the first men lacked in weaponry, they made up for in ferocity. Finally uniting behind King Robar Royce, the first men smashed the Andals in battle after battle, reclaiming the Vale and pushing the invaders back to the sea from whence they'd come. Learning from the first men, the remaining
I mean, we do know the
Andals
Royce
united
family have been
behind a
serving
leader of
for
their
years.
own. Not a king or a lord, but a knight who'd been born in the Vale and knew it as well as the first men. Sir Artus Arryn, known as the Falcon Knight. The
Oh,
armies of the
okay.
first men
I think we've
and
heard of
the
him before.
Andals met beneath the Giant's Lance to decide the fate of the Vale. Sir Artus had many more mounted knights than the first men, who preferred to fight on foot. But the first men had seized the high ground, digging trenches in front of their ranks and lining them with sharpened stakes smeared with offal and excrement.
Smart.
6 times the Andal knights charged, and 6 times the first men threw them back. But on the 7th, a fearsome Andal warrior broke through the ranks of the first men, and the Andals rushed through the gap. If King Robar had been wiser, he would have retreated and saved his army for another day. Then again, if he'd been wise at all, he'd never have risked his army of foot soldiers against mounted knights in the first place. When King Rober saw the falcon helm of Sir Artus across the field, he
Shut
wagered
himself.
that the Andals would break if they lost their leader, and rode hard for the Falcon Knight.
Oh,
The singers
so didn't
paint
shoot
a pretty
himself.
picture of the battle. The king in flashing bronze armor,
Oh, what's his
the knight in
fingers?
silvered steel.
Looks like it.
But the duel lasted no longer than a verse of the songs. For King Rober had taken a Valerian sword off a dead Andal lord, and it sheared through Sir Artus' helm much like a
Damn.
bird's
Oh,
wing
shit.
through the air.
Destroyed him.
As the Falcon Knight tumbled to earth, King Rober thought he'd won his desperate gamble. Then he heard the trumpets behind him. When he turned, he saw 500 fresh Andal knights pouring down the giant's lance. And the man at its head was also the man
We
at
know what those
Rober's
trumpets
feet.
mean in, you
For
know, the
Sir
last
Artus,
episode that we watched.
Unique in that
Episode 9.
age, or indeed
Did you
any
realise that?
age, esteemed cunning even more than martial strength.
I think you said in a
And had
decoy.
clad one of his knights in his spare suit of armor,
Yeah.
leaving him to die at Rober's hand, while Sir Artus took his best horsemen up a goat track he knew from childhood. The
Alright,
charge of the
damn.
Andal Knights broke the last great army of the first men, who would
Outplayed big
never
time.
again threaten the new Knights of the Vale. Some of the defeated would even join their ranks in the years to come, but many more fled to the mountains, choosing savagery over submission. Ever since, the Knights of the Vale enjoyed an exclusive position in Westeros. They could sally forth from the Vale at will, knowing that if battle went against them, they could retreat through the Bloody Gate where no army could follow.
Yeah,
Until
that's
the
awesome.
dragons changed the game.
Oh, dragons.
When Aegon the
yeah.
Conqueror
Next
landed
level.
in Westeros, the Queen Regent of the Vale shut the Bloody Gate against the Targaryens and massed the Knights of the Vale behind it to lock it. But Visenya simply flew her dragon to a balcony of the Eyrie where the boy king was playing and gave the boy a ride round the castle.
Oh,
in return
shit.
for his mother's submission. With the conquest, no
I'd like
more
to
could
ride
the
a dragon,
Knights of
so I
the
get
Vale
it.
hide behind their mountains.
No, it's like if
Or
Mother
they
didn't
soon
submit, the boy would have
discovered
been
they
thrown
need
off.
to. For thousands of years, the other kingdoms had warred and treated to balance each other's might, whilst the Vale kept to itself. None realized what power the Vale could have until Jon
damn
Arryn
door.
defied the Iron Throne, refusing to surrender Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon to the Mad King. The North, the Riverlands, and the Stormlands couldn't have beaten the other three kingdoms by themselves, but the Knights of the Vale rode with them. Now,
Okay, cool.
the North is freezing, the Riverlands are burnt,
Yeah, so they were pretty
the
important.
Stormlands are spent.
And this is
Dawn
the hype up
distant.
because they helped
The
Jon
Westerlands
Snow
are
take back
weakened,
Winterfell as
and
well.
The Reach is paralyzed. Of all the great armies in Westeros, only the Knights of the Vale have yet to suffer exhaustion or defeat. The Bloody Gate is opening again onto Westeros, and through it passes opportunity.
Yeah, the thing that concerns me is like the Knights of the Vale are amazing and whatnot, and they're reunited with the North. But Littlefinger pretty much has control over them. That's what concerns me, because you never know which way he's gonna
Yeah.
flip or flop.
But Jon has the respect of the rest of the North, and the Knights of the Vale typically were loyal to the Starks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a fine line there. And with Dany coming in, I honestly think Littlefinger at this point is just going to lose most
Yeah.
of the game. I think Varys played the winning card, which was betting on Dany.
Yeah.
Littlefinger bet on himself, and it ain't going to look so good.
It's gonna be interesting seeing Littlefinger and Varys face each other now with their newfound power positions.
I'm expecting him to die, Littlefinger, in season 7. I
Okay,
just don't see how he can be important in the battle against the White Walkers. His whole purpose has been about
climbing the ladder.
and the Game of Thrones. So I just think that he's purposely going to die at this point, whereas Varys has been for the realm, which is a bigger purpose.
Yeah, and he did say that he wants the throne now, and I mean Cersei's got it, so
Yeah. Between Cersei and Dany, he ain't got no chance.
yeah.
So this one is the Children of the Forest versus the First Men by the Three-Eyed Raven.
And his name
The
is
original.
Max.
I think that's the actor. That's all the actors are in the brackets. Yeah, nice try.
War did not come to Westeros with men. In the dawn of days, the children of the forest fought the giants. But neither race sought to destroy the other. or lay claim to the continent. They couldn't. The children hunted and fought with dragon-glass arrows and spears, and the giants had only the branches they pulled from trees. Nor
Yeah, okay.
could both races fill more than one of the 7 kingdoms of today. Then the southern deserts coughed up a new race, the first men, who had crossed the narrow sea over the arm of Dorne.
That's
Unlike
the
the children
problem.
and giants, the first men lived in huts and villages and farmed the land to eat. And there were so many. As the numbers swelled, men needed ever more fields and timber. Of course, they saw that the great forests could provide both. When they cut into the deep woods, however, they stumbled on a strange sight. A white
Start
tree
crying.
with red leaves and a face staring back at them. At first, they were afraid, but the face never spoke, even when the axe bit into it. The first men didn't know what a werewood was. They didn't know that a werewood grows forever if left in peace, or that the native children believed their spirits went into it after death. The children had no letters or runes, all of the history, songs and prayers, only the trees remembered. When the children looked at the cleared fields,
That's really
they saw
sad.
not white stumps, but their ancestors now lost forever, with their bones stolen to line the invaders' walls.
That's brutal.
Driven mad by grief, the children attacked.
So they were
The
really
first men
grieving.
had
That's
never
understandable.
seen a werewood, but the children had never seen bronze. Their dragon-glass arrows glanced off the first men's shields, and their armor of woven bark split beneath the first men's swords. As the war
Why'd you need
raged,
more then?
the children resorted to the one advantage they had, the magic of their old gods. Their green seers enlisted dire wolves and snow bears, cave lions and eagles, mammoths and serpents. In return, the first men cut down and burned every werewood they could find, fearing that the children would spy on them.
This is the original
through
conflict.
faces in the
Sparked it all.
trees. The children became desperate. Their green seers called down the Hammer of Waters to break the arm of Dorne, destroying the bridge that men crossed into Westeros, and to flood the neck to contain men to the south. But the first men would not be stopped. Fearing extinction, the children combined their powers for one last spell to save their people and their land from the invaders.
Yeah,
By
for a very
themselves,
short
the
time.
children were too few to resist the onslaught. But if they could turn men's numbers against them. After hundreds of years and untold death and destruction, the wisest heads of the children and the first men finally prevailed. The children couldn't win this war, and the first men didn't want to win, fearing the costs of victory. Heroes and rulers on both sides met upon an isle in the god's eye to form the pact. The children gave up all the lands of Westeros, save for the deep forests. And the first men swore that they would no longer cut down the werewoods.
So there's a
Thus
few left.
ended the Dawn Age and began the Age of Heroes. Yet after the dawn must come the night. The great evil that the children unleashed in the war returned centuries later, and only the alliance
Centuries.
between the children and men defeated it. Now it comes again, when the children are a shadow of what they were, and men have long forgotten. But the trees remember, and Brandon Stark must learn. Or, as we watched the first men, so we will watch the last.
So that's how he gets the
Damn.
memories through the trees.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense because he holds on to them to get the memories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
wow, true.
they store all the memories of the lands and what's happened. That's interesting.
That is very interesting. Holy shit, okay.
Proves that the children of the forest power was legitimate in terms of the way they connected to the ancestors' memories.
Yeah. So, it's funny because like we knew that, but watching it we didn't. Like,
Well, it's just better explained here. Now we understand why it's happening.
yeah, okay, interesting. So yeah, I get everything had to happen, but now we're just stuck with these White Walkers. I feel better equipped though. You know, now with Dany and Jon Snow and things like that. If our theories are correct about Jon Snow being,
Even with Dany, having 3 dragons is huge.
Yeah.
And now that Jon hopefully knows Valyrian steel swords are also useful, you rather them all up and have them on the front lines.
yeah. So
Tormund deserves one.
I know. Maybe he'll get Heartsbane.
Yeah, Sammy's one, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Brienne will probably be in the fight too, because she's got one too.
Honestly, I think the whole of Westeros will be in this fight.
Well, whoever lives at the end of this,
Yeah,
yeah.
true. We still got 2 seasons.
And I can imagine a lot of death still to come.
All right, it's time for Old Town by Sneaky Snake Pycelle. Now
And
he's-
Qyburn.
And
So we're gonna
Qyburn.
This is going to be like that one where we had Varys and Littlefinger. Now it's going to be these two.
Oh, they don't, and because they don't like each other.
Yeah, we know Qyburn stitched Pycelle up at the end of the season.
Sneaky Snake Pycelle is gone.
See, I didn't fully savor his death only because it was at the hands of people that I also don't like. I hate Cersei more than Pycelle by a long shot.
Oh, for sure, same.
Yeah.
Without question, Old Town is the oldest, wealthiest, and greatest city in Westeros.
Though King's Landing is more populous, and arguably more powerful.
The city straddles the mouth of the Honeywine River, and the bounty of the entire Reach flows beneath its great stone bridges to ports that are renowned throughout the world.
Thus we needn't speak more of them. More interesting is the history of the city.
They're on opposite
For
pages.
none can say when it was founded. Many centuries ago, a few bold maesters sought out the children of the forest, who claimed that men have lived at the mouth of the Honeywine since the Dawn Age.
Nonsense. Maester Jellicoe proved that the city began as a trading post, where ships from Valyria, Old Geese, and the Summer Isles put in to replenish their provisions and make repairs. Hence the most famous feature of the city, the High Tower, raised even before the city walls, as a beacon through the fog-covered waters. Originally built of
interesting.
wood and standing a mere 50 feet above the ancient fortress of its foundation, it is now thick stone and rises even taller than the wall. Those born and raised in Old Town can tell
Music's
the
cool.
time of day by where its shadow falls.
But no maester can tell why. Even in our oldest records, the island on which it stands is called Battle Isle. What battle was fought there? And when? As for the
Fair
ancient
enough.
fortress that
Good
forms the
point.
tower's base, its walls and interiors are all of solid black stone with no hints of joins or mortar, and no chisel marks of any kind. We know it predates the tower itself by thousands of years. But who built it? How? And
Good
against what?
questions.
Yeah.
I thought I
right.
might
Makers who have
Qyburn.
studied it
He's interesting.
declared it to be a Valyrian construction,
Pycelle's
akin to
closed-minded.
Dragonstone and the Black
Qyburn
Walls
questions.
of Volantis. As is
Which
well
didn't
known,
help Cersei.
the Dragon Lords of Valyria could turn stone to liquid with dragon flame to shape as they wished.
Didn't one Archmaester link the fortress to the vanished maze makers of Lorath, and another maester to the legendary Deep Ones who inhabited the Iron Islands before the Ironborn?
Both marginal opinions without common support. But of more importance than the origin of the tower is the family to which it gave its name. House Hightower, the ancient
we
ruling
know from House
family
of
of
the
Old
Dragon.
Town, known for their prudence and love of peace.
And pieces of gold.
Like,
Yeah.
now you know
Age of heroes,
Qyburn,
when Lyman
Pycelle's
Hightower
wrong.
saw the Gardener Kings conquering the Reach, he didn't beat them on the battlefield, but in the God's Wood. He bound his house to theirs by marriage, and transformed House Hightower from wealthy but relatively minor kings to the greatest lords of the Reach. Thanks to Lord Lyman's foresight, Highgarden has always defended Old Town, allowing the Hightowers to focus on higher pursuits such as learning and trade.
Yeah,
On
that's
that we
exactly
agree.
what.
When the Andals invaded Westeros, Lord Dorian Hightower told his wife of 20 years that wars are bad for trade, and to make his point, traded her for a young Andal princess. When
Oh
my
Aegon the
God.
Conqueror was earning his name, House Hightower traded its loyalty to the Gardeners for his confirmation of their rights, welcoming him with open arms and open gates.
House Hightower
Right,
bent the
okay.
knee to
Double meaning
Aegon
gate.
to spare the city from his dragons. I would think such insinuations and insults beneath even you, Qyburn. Then again, mockery of one's betters is the trade of fools.
I wouldn't know. Perhaps if I'd
Yeah, I
studied
wouldn't
at the
know.
Citadel as long as you, Grand Maester.
The Citadel is the greatest seat of learning in the known world. Without it, and the maesters it trains, Westeros would be a land of superstition and ignorance.
Like the ignorance that shrouds the Citadel's own birth.
Even without records, we have more than enough reason to believe that the Citadel began as a court of scholars and priests, assembled by a second
Why,
son
though?
of House Hightower. When he died, his elder brother raised the Citadel so that wise men would always have a home in Westeros and could continue the inquiries and debates that had given such joy to his younger brother.
His little brother's pets, as legend has it, he called them. And so the maesters have remained, only their masters have changed. Now they serve every lord with a castle. For a fee, of course. Whilst the Citadel serves its own importance.
Every word you speak merely validates your own expulsion from our ranks.
Knowledge is validation enough. I assumed the world's greatest minds would agree, and perhaps they would if I'd met them. Old Town is a city for old men and old beliefs. The world is changing. No matter how high the tower, the clouds will not hold it up if the ground shifts beneath it.
That is true.
Yeah, there's the mountain.
Crazy scenes. That was actually a really interesting.
That was pretty
one.
funny. I enjoyed that. Those two bickering. I actually missed Pycelle just because I feel like I didn't appreciate him and Qyburn's banter enough. I wanna
okay.
on a rewatch. I will.
I found it funny how Pycelle was like, I don't know, I can't remember exactly his words, but something about being a mockery and stuff like that is a disgrace. And I'm just like, mate, you're a mockery yourself. Like, you pretend every day to, you know, walk in all hunched over and
He's a hypocrite for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So that's why he got his name Sneaky Snake Pycelle.
Yeah, and I see why you like Qyburn, because in terms of inquiring
Yeah.
into things beyond what most people are inquiring and challenging the status quo, you definitely share that mindset.
Yeah.
Just that Qyburn, like what I understand, like live experiments and stuff, he's you know, sort of let that reign a bit too freely.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I guess in that time, that's how you learn. And I'm sure there's a million other ways to learn.
But yeah, you would be the Qyburn of our times.
I would be, I think.
Go to the Institute of Learning, say, yeah, no, you guys are all wrong, we're going beyond this, and then go do your own thing.
I would be.
I'd probably be just the King Aegon of our times.
Mate, I don't know.
Definitely would be. So this one is The Summer Sea by Euron Greyjoy. He's
hearing
actually
a lot
spoken
from
a
him.
lot, yeah.
We're hearing a lot.
Circling the Jade Sea is the dream of every merchant, and the other side is the golden empire of Yeti, which was ancient when the Valyrians were still fucking goats. Even its ruins dwarf every city in Westeros, and its princes are said to live in houses of solid gold and feast on meat powdered with pearls and jade. Foolish talk. If it were true, I would have visited them long ago. But a bold merchant will risk 2 years for one voyage, to fatten his holds with spices, gems, and silks, so that he never wants for anything again. To be fair, many never do, because my ship, Silence, finds them on their return. Their merchant dreams look so pitiful poured out on my decks. Not enough for any lifetime but their own. Traders from the Summer Islands make tougher prey. Not even the Silence can run down their sworn ships on the open sea. When we take them by surprise, our rams splinter and crack against their hulls.
It talks so mysteriously.
Yeah.
The Summer Islands.
I half like it, but I half feel like he just wasn't cool enough coming in so far anyway.
Every swan ship carries a
Sounds
company
cooler
of
on
archers
these.
armed
Yeah.
with golden heart bows, which can
Compared to the
help
guys we've met so
shaft
far,
hard
it doesn't
enough
seem on that
to
level.
pierce steel plate. After all
Seems
that
more like an
trouble,
afterthought.
we often
Yeah.
find their holds filled only with maps, fruit, and wooden trinkets. Hardly worth our time and blood, except for their women. To worship their god, all
course.
women of the Summer Islands learn to fuck. It's enough to make
To worship their
man
god.
go. Ebony's whalers are the most worthless of prices. The men of Iba short, thick, and hairy. So are their women. Not even tales of their six-breast can tempt men to take them.
Oh my god.
The Ebonese know how to build ships. Their great-bellied whalers can weather any storm and withstand the assaults of the largest beasts. In battle, the Ebonese are incredibly strong.
Ebonese
Their
sounds
blood
cool.
reeks of blubber and oil, and their hulls are rarely worth scrubbing our decks.
That's like
free
a
of the
whale with
stench.
its guts out, I'm pretty sure.
When our
Oh, yeah,
hulls
shit,
were
true. I was
full
thinking what
or
the
needed
hell it was, yeah.
repair, we set a course for the greatest safe
That
harbor
was
of the
beautiful.
Summer Sea, the Basilisk Isles, Port Plunder, Stye, Horsegash. No map can find these towns, nor can the laws of men. The slavers keep their captives in caves on the Isle of Tears. Pirates
Damn.
trade their goods on Barter Beach and hire fresh crews from the murderers filling every inn. Great piles of old yellow skulls line the shores of one deserted island. Offerings from captains who have fresh heads pinned to their masts. Once every generation, the free cities send fleets to destroy the towns and hang every man they find.
Holy
Oh my
shit.
god.
And the towns are abandoned to rot and sink back into the slime. But come the next year, another Port Plunder sprouts up somewhere else on the Isles, like a toadstool from a new pile of shit.
Is that
For many
Danny's music?
years,
Sounds like
It is,
it.
yeah.
brought silence to the summer sea. But when I close my eyes, I hear the waves breaking below the bridges of Pike. I hear the king's smooth chanting my brother's name. Merchants paid the gold price, buying their desires with coin. Reavers paid the iron
Big
price,
ambitions.
taking what we want from the corpses of the men who had it. But for what I dream, no gold can buy, and no iron can take. I must pay with fire and blood.
Damn.
Okay.
Okay. Shit.
So he's really on the Danny conquest, very ambitious.
But he's not going to get it, dude. He's the opposite
No.
of what she wants.
I
Especially
don't
when,
see it.
especially when he goes on and give him my cock. I'm like,
I
oh, dude,
know.
you've lost Danny. Danny's just going to burn you now.
I know, literally Yara and Danny, obviously.
Same wavelength. Yeah.
Yeah, they're on the same wavelength. Euron is just like on a whole other planet in terms of negotiations. Like, I don't get what you want to negotiate. A fleet, okay, she's got that now. She got that from the Masters. You got nothing left to offer that she wants. And it's
Yeah.
definitely not you that she wants. Okay, so this next one is Riveron by Brendan Tully.
In the long and glorious history of men butchering each other, we riverfolk make the best meat. How else can you explain why anyone would stay in a land of constant carnage for thousands of years? If it wasn't the first men killing the children of the forest here, it was the Andals killing the first men. And
They've
Brendan-
been through it.
Brendan Blackfish.
even when the Riverlands finally united behind the kings of House Justman,
Brendan-
the
yeah,
unusual
Blackfish.
silence of peace attracted the Storm Lords, Westermen, and those bloody Ironborn to try and take our grain, gold, and women. The problem is, and has always been, that the Riverlands have no natural defenses. Unlike the North, we don't have the neck to keep invaders waist-deep in muck. Unlike the Vale, we don't have mountains with narrow passes easily defended by stable boys with slings. Unlike Dawn, we don't have a blazing sun. And, well, the Dornish. My ancestors may have had a funny taste in sigils, but they knew one
Yeah, I know.
thing. If you plan on staying in the Riverlands, you'd better have a strong castle. My ancestor, Axel Tully, bright man that he was, realized that most soldiers can't swim.
Right man that he was.
And raised his castle of Riveran, where the Red Fork and the Tumblestone rivers meet. He built
Okay.
right up to the
Interesting,
water on
smart.
each side, daring
Wow.
attackers to force a crossing. If they wore armor, they'd drown. If they
Yeah.
don't, our archers would feather them from the
Okay,
battlements.
quite
as they
smart.
Pretty smart, yeah.
An army could still assault River Run from the west, however, so my ancestors dug a wide moat along our western wall, connecting the rivers on either side of the castle. When any would-be conquerors showed up, we opened a series of gates and flooded the moat, transforming River Run into an island fortress
That's
with
pretty
enough
cool.
stores to last years.
Wow.
As the invaders starved in their camps, they'd watch us fish off our walls, just for variety.
True.
And because we were bored.
So they could have waited it out if not for
home.
Jamie's plan.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1,000 years that River Run has stood, not
Blackfish was
once
prepared
has
to.
it been taken by force. It's a proper castle. You want it? You have to marry into it.
Come and get it.
Even the damned Freys knew that much. Up junk toll collectors living on a bridge instead of beneath it like the rest of their kind. But finally, a Lord of the Crossing passed off one of his brood to his liege lord, House Tully. My nephew Edmure. People say Lord Walder arranged the Red Wedding to punish Robb Stark. I say he did it just as much to steal River Run. They've always envied our castle. Maybe they think 2 rivers can wash off the filth that coats them.
Yeah, I know, very
They'll never
filthy.
know. The Lannisters could grant River Run to the Freys for 1,000 years. But that doesn't mean they can have it.
Yeah,
Do
true.
you think it was
Jamie
hard
did
to
say
convince
that.
Tully's soldiers to turn against the Freys? Do you think we won't enjoy watching them simper as winter bears down on their pitiful camp? I even carved a new fishing rod for the occasion.
Fishing. That's
When the
hilarious.
starving Freys look up at our walls, we'll wave our trouts.
That's mad. They can just fish and keep feeding themselves.
I know. Makes sense as to why he said last time that, you know, they could wait it out for years and they have before.
They really could have. If freaking Edmure, is that his name?
Yeah.
So he got played big time, dude. He ended up back in the jail cell. But they threatened his child, but I don't know, fire out.
I know, honestly. He hasn't met his child,
Yeah.
which baffles me.
Worst wedding ever.
The worst wedding ever. I mean, they've had some horrible weddings in Game of Thrones, but that, yeah.
Well, now that Walder Frey's dead, maybe he'll be released.
Walder Frey's dead by my girl Arya. Yeah, damn. Okay.
Nothing, dirty old man. He deserves it.
Season 7, a lot is about to change. Can't wait.
Yep. All right, so this one's The Brotherhood Without Banners by Thoros of Myr.
I haven't heard from him in a while.
This will be interesting.
King Robert still lived, and Lord Eddard Stark had just survived an ambush by Jaime Lannister in King's Landing. We were the King's men, charged by the King's hand to bring the King's justice to the false knight, Gregor Clegane, who was raping and murdering the King's subjects in the Riverlands. To be honest, I cared more about the King's cellars, but I joined Lord Beric for the adventure. And maybe a grateful milkmaid or 2. Sir Gregor isn't called the Mountain because of his subtlety, yet he took us by surprise at the Mummers Ford. He'd hidden his men on both banks, and as we crossed, he fell upon us from the front and rear. I saw a single blow from his sword take a man's arm off and
Damn.
kill the horse beneath him.
Oh my
Many
god.
of us, though, were simply ridden down and drowned. The survivors spotted my damn red cloak and rallied around me, and we cut our way free. 100 men we'd been that morning. By dark, only 40 were left, and Lord Beric looked to make us 39 before morning.
Beric
I drew a
Dondarrion.
foot of lance from his chest and poured boiling wine into the hole it left, but I knew there was no hope. When his light failed, I shut his eyes, placed my hands on his cold chest, and mumbled a half-remembered blessing over his body, because he was my commander and my friend.
Yeah,
and I didn't know
wow.
what else to do.
Damn.
I felt his heart thud beneath his breast.
Crazy.
His body shuddered as the fire of life rekindled inside it. I used to joke that I became a red priest because the robes hid the wine stains, but the wine itself hid an unbelieving heart. When Beric's eyes opened, so did mine. I fell to my knees and praised the one true God and begged forgiveness for my ways.
Well, thank God for that.
I don't
Then we
know
got
if the
John
Lord
back.
heard me, but when dawn came, Beric was still alive and stronger than he'd been.
But that was Melisandre.
He told us that our war hadn't ended at the Mummers Ford,
Stronger than
but
he'd been.
begun, and that every fallen brother would be avenged. We were so few,
you say?
though, that
Every
all we
fallen
could do
brother
was
would be
harry the
avenged.
Lannisters'
Wait,
rear.
what did you say?
Luckily, all they could do
I don't remember.
was kill Beric. A Lannister mace shattered his helm and skull,
A noose snapped his neck after he surrendered himself to save a beekeeper and his wife. The mountain's dirt pierced his eye through his visor. After each time, I stood over his corpse and prayed to the Lord, and the Lord brought him back.
Bam.
Shit.
Alive.
Then we heard that Robert was dead and Lord Eddard too. We'd been sent by the king's hand to deal with outlaws, but now
Did you
we
pray
were
for
the
him?
outlaws, and Lord Tywin was the hand of the king. Some
Yeah,
wanted
they got
to
outlawed
yield,
by
but
following
they wouldn't
Ned's.
hear of it. We were still
Man.
king's men, he said, and these were the king's people the lions were savaging. If we could not fight for Robert, we would fight for them until every man of us was dead.
Pretty epic.
We'd lost the
Flaming
King's battle
sword.
at the Mummer's Ford, but then the countryside was awash with sigils and armies anyway. We became the Brotherhood without banners. Beric led us in
mad.
battle, and I led us in prayer, and the Lord of Light led us in everything. When the heralds proclaimed the end of the War of the Five Kings, none of us thought of yielding. Our war wasn't over.
I love it.
The generals had gone home, but the soldiers stayed. Either they had no homes to return to, or they'd gotten a taste for other peoples. The Brotherhood was the people's only defense. We became the brothers of murdered siblings, husbands of murdered wives, and fathers of murdered children.
Yeah, wow.
By a murdered man. Once we sought to bring the king's justice to the realm. Now we bring the Lord's. Or at least we try.
Okay. Interesting. What I said was, because you said that, you know, thank goodness, because John's alive, but that was more Melisandre than Thoros of Myr.
No. Melisandre didn't know that the power existed until she met Thoros of Myr. That's
Yes.
why I said thank God for that, because by his accidental revival, we discovered the power.
Correct.
So once again, you've just uttered nonsense.
Correct. Yeah, interesting. So
It recaps the Brotherhood of Banners basically exist because Ned gave him a command, then the kingdom changed allegiance, and they were considered from the king's, will to outlaws because they were following Ned's command, which was
Yeah.
considered betraying. So then they made their own faction. That all began because of, that. It's crazy.
I know, bloody crazy. But the fact that Beric Dondarrion is alive and also the Lord of Light willed the Hound to be alive, I really want to see what their purpose is.
Oh, yeah. Will they be in the final battle?
Is it about the final battle? Is it something smaller? Because we do know, obviously, Stannis had a smaller role in the Lord of Light's, I don't know, battle, I guess, or goal. So, yeah, I'm really intrigued to see where that story goes.
Okay, so this one is going to be The Great Sept of Baelor by the High Sparrow. Oh, yeah.
You're going to like this one, I think.
Yeah. I'm always intrigued by the way he talks about things and analyzes them. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Fire and blood make poor tools, as kings make poor servants.
Okay.
House Targaryen called themselves dragons long after the last beast died. Perhaps it's only fitting that even their humility was monstrous. Men worshipped on Visenya's hill thousands of years before Visenya came and Baelor raised the sanctum that bears his name. The massive dome and towers of the Great Sept of Baelor can be seen from anywhere in the city, but not from the vast countryside that paid for it. Its 7 bells can be heard as far as Dragonstone whenever a king dies, but none tolled for the stonemasons, glaziers, and smiths who built it.
Right,
The Great
okay.
Sept was built to impress upon a man how much greater the gods are than him. A noble goal, and
Okay,
in that,
yep.
it succeeds. Within the main chamber, the sun streams through a 7-pointed star to illuminate the 7 towering over mortals. The crone with her lantern for lost souls. The mother with her welcoming arms.
His favorite.
The father with his scales of justice. The maiden with her purity. The warrior with his sword. The smith with his hammer. And lastly, the stranger with his shrouded face.
Interesting.
Pilgrims cross the 7 kingdoms to light candles here at the feet of their gods. But these aren't the gods. The 7 aren't encased in stone in the Great Sept any more than the souls of dead kings are in the tombs below it. To steward his monument to vanity,
Bela summoned the High Septon of the Faith from his ancient seat in Old Town and gifted him with ornate robes and a crown of crystal and gold. And like a fool, the High Septon put on his lord's motley and danced at his lord's table. And with each passing year,
not really following
the
the
High
faith.
Septons fell ever lower. How can the flock be kept safe from wolves when the shepherd sleeps in their den?
Yeah,
Bela
that's
himself
interesting.
appointed a simple-minded stonemason, believing him the smith reborn. And when he died, Bela replaced him with an 8-year-old boy, whom Bela had seen speaking with doves that answered with the voices of the seven. Still, the common people revere
Crazy.
Bela as the Blessed. They tell of how he forced a high lord to wash a beggar's feet, fasted to tame his unnatural lusts, and walked the bone way himself to make peace with dawn.
Okay.
Many
Oh,
septons
okay.
and scepters even claim that Bela rescued his cousin, the Dragon Knight, from a snake pit, because no viper would strike a man so pure and holy. A lie. Bela was bitten 12 times and was bedridden for half a year.
Damn.
And yet he didn't die, nor did his High Septons ruin the faith. Blessed Bela's statue may greet men outside the doors, but when men enter the Great Sept, they don't see the gold, or the crystal, or the ambitions of a humble member of a powerful dynasty. They see the gods. They feel awe at the divine majesty and their own insignificance. The gods work through Bela's pride and vanity as they work through all of us. For the
That's
faith
been his whole
is more
thing
than
this
a
whole
sept.
time.
The faith is more than a High Septon, more than all the septons and scepters who preach to the living, more than the silent sisters who prepare the dead. The faith is the will of the gods, and we are all its instruments. Kings
Yeah, right.
and
I love how he
beggars,
speaks in absolution.
lords
It's
and cobblers,
got presence about
lions
it.
and sparrows.
I mean,
Right.
one thing he's never steered away from is that he is just a servant of the God's will. So he is nothing special or important or whatever. Although it did seem like that at times, just in the way that he spoke and things like that. But
But he did always walk around barefoot in ruggedy robes. He always knelt, before
he
the
was
gods.
trying to
so-
embody Baelor, essentially.
Interesting man. I as I've said off screen with you, I do miss him, and I almost ashamed the way he went out. I wanted to see more from him. I like the way he stirred things up in the Game of Thrones world.
Yeah. And I think the only reason why a lot of people hated him was because we built so much, love for the characters that are on screen and all the houses and the way things were. We were so used to it. It really shook things up when he came, and that's fair enough. But when you looked at him objectively,
Yeah,
he is more for equal footing in this world.
sure. And we got used to kings and queens doing atrocities, but it's the king. When a simple man like that came in ruggedy robes, it was like, who does he think he is? I was
Yeah.
like, I like that.
Yeah. I didn't agree with everything that he did, but I do like the objectiveness. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so now we're going to watch The Little Birds by Varys. I always
Yeah.
love hearing Varys speak.
I know, the little birds that killed everyone. And Cersei did nothing.
Yeah, true.
Men called me the Spider long before I came to Westeros. As a young
Yeah,
thief
why?
in Pentos, I seemed to have 8 hands, each dipped into a stranger's pocket.
Okay.
But the other thieves didn't appreciate my skill, and they had size and strength that I couldn't match. When they discovered why, I was beaten and told that a eunuch boy doesn't belong in the streets, but in the brothels, as any slaver would know. I managed to escape them, and took to sleeping in the sewers by day and prowling the rooftops by night.
Shit, he really did it tough.
Barely one step ahead of starvation, much less slavery.
Poor guy.
Then I met Illyrio Mapatis. He was a bravo who lived by his sword, but his
Remember
mind
him?
was sharper than his blade. I proposed an
Danny
arrangement.
Viserys stayed in his
I would
castle.
spy on lesser thieves and steal their takings. Illyrio would offer help to the thieves' victims, promising to recover their valuables for a fee. Soon, every honest man knew to come to Illyrio.
So that's where he learnt it
whilst
all.
the city's cut purses sought me. half to sell me what they had stolen, and the other half to slit my throat. Sadly for them, Illyrio needed my throat more than he needed theirs. Most thieves, like most men, are fools who think no further than turning a night's plunder into wine. Luckily, as the other thieves had reminded me, I was not a man. Nor were those I hired with the gold we earned.
Bigger plans for
I chose
our
the
boy
smallest
Barris.
orphan boys and girls, the ones who were as quick and quiet as me, and taught them to climb walls and slip down chimneys.
Yeah,
My
wow.
little birds left the shiny trinkets for common thieves, and instead stole letters, ledgers, and charts.
Right.
Secrets are worth far more than silver or sapphires.
Mm.
Later,
I admire
I
it.
taught my little birds to read the letters themselves and leave them where they lay, so no one would know of our intrusion.
Yeah, wow.
Illyrio and I grew so rich that Illyrio wed a princess of Pentos, whilst whispers of my talents reached the ears of a very anxious king across the narrow sea, who did not trust his son, nor his wife, nor his hand.
Right,
Nor should
okay.
he have, as I told him once I arrived and raised more little birds. They thought it the most amazing game to discover all the secret tunnels through the Red Keep and listen to all the whispered secrets from within the castle walls. I often wonder what became of my little birds once I left King's Landing. Most likely they
Oh,
returned
you don't want to know.
Oh my god, we went to Kyburn.
grew up. One day, I'll
Horrendous.
hear their song again. Until then, well, the world never lacks for orphans. Little birds sing
Create
in the
new
west,
birds.
and little birds sing in the east. And a harpy flies into a spider's web.
No, I love it.
Shit. Love Varys backs himself big time.
I know.
Yeah, if only you knew his little birds are now been turned into Clyburn's, which is probably not the best. They're weak for Cersei. It's not great scenes.
I know. They were saying that they miss Varys. Like, I can imagine that he treated them really well, especially after everything that he had been through. He was them, you know? So
Yep.
I really do like Varys.
Me too, a lot. So this one, I honestly have no idea what it means, but The War of the Ninepenny Kings by Brother Ray. Who's Brother Ray?
I don't know.
So we don't know what it's about or who it is. Great. Let's get into it.
The War of the Ninepenny Kings, they called it. But I never saw a king or earned a penny. After the war ended, I heard it all started when an exiled royal bastard raised an army of sellswords, and the rightful king sent his own army to stop an invasion. Sounds simple the way the maesters tell it, but an army isn't like a dog that comes when you whistle. The king calls on great lords, who call on lesser lords, who send out their captains to round up all the peasant men on the land the lord claims to own. If the lord is wise and generous, his new soldiers are given steel swords and wooden shields to fight his battles. Most of our army fought with sharp sticks.
Oh,
Singers
shit.
still sing of the valiant heroes made in the
I don't
war.
recognize the voice
Sir
yet.
Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, Sir Tywin Lannister, and Prince Aerys Targaryen, Sir Barristan Selmy the Bold, who
All
slew
the big
bastard
names.
Pretender and ended the war at a stroke. But the king whose crown we were defending never came. He mattered too much, I suppose. His hand commanded the crown's armies and died valiantly in his son's arms. Or so the singers say. I never saw that either. I did see the soldiers when they came to our village. They declared I was too young to fight, but my brothers and friends were all going and I wouldn't be left behind.
Who
my
are
oldest
you?
brother said I could be his squire. Though he wasn't a knight, just a pot boy armed with a stolen kitchen knife. He'd never need it. I saw him collapse on the march from fever, along with many from our village. I saw our
Yeah.
shoes fall apart on the road, our clothes rot off our bodies, and half of us shitting our beds from the sickness and fear. And then we got to the war. In the stepstones, I saw a mace cave in my last brother's head. I saw the lord who led us there cut down,
Wow.
and some other lords shout that we were his now. One day I looked around and
Damn.
realized all my friends and kin were gone. I was fighting beside strangers under a banner I'd never
That's a
seen.
lonely life.
Didn't know where I was or how to get home. When a lord rode up shouting at us to form ranks with our scythes and hoes, I couldn't remember which side I was on. Then the knights came down on us, faceless men, all in steel, and the thunder of their charge filled the world. I closed my eyes. Years later, after the war had faded into songs, I opened them again and saw what I had done and what I had become in the war and since.
Is
I
this
went looking for a way back home?
the Hound's friend, the one that
I'll
died?
never reach it. But that doesn't mean I don't need a guide.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, I thought about the story and it matched his the most.
The voice. Yes, I knew the voice.
I thought he was going to be a much bigger player than he died so soon. It was unexpected.
So sad that, you know, I can't believe it. Like,
At least he should have lived. All that would happen. He should have lived. Him and Hound joined the Brotherhood of Banners together. That would have been cool.
it was interesting because he followed the faith of the seven and that was fine, but he was still open to, well, whatever it is, it could be any faith, but really at the heart of the faith, these are my views.
I think he was a much more reasonable version of the High Septon.
Yeah.
Of the High Sparrow, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
I mean, both refer to him, but he was a much more, which arguably to fight Cersei and stuff, you needed the High Sparrow, but yeah, as in terms of leading the religion, he was like, look, we try and follow in the words of what they say and their teachings, but I'm not going to pretend like I know it all. I'm not going to pretend like it's absolution.
Because
and there's room for the discovery, you know?
Yeah, because he was one thing and then became another. So, yeah, I mean...
He wasn't as black and white with like good and evil, sin or not, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And he was really good for the Hound. I guess he was a stepping stone for him to not hate himself as much, you know?
Yep. So this one is going to be The Great Tawny at Harrenhal by Mira Reed.
Do you remember who Mira is?
It sounds familiar and I'm trying to... it was with Bran.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because last time you forgot.
I forget her name. I know her face, but yeah.
Years ago, in the height of summer, my father told my brother and me a story. He only told it once, and he refused to speak of it ever again. When he was a young man, in the year of the false spring, a great southern lord held the largest tourney Westeros had ever seen, in the largest castle Westeros had ever seen. Knights and lords from across the 7 kingdoms made their way, drawn by the spectacle and the size of the champion's purse. Even the king was rumoured to be attending, though none had seen him in years. Ours is a small house, and my father had come only to be part of the magnificence, whose like he'd never see again. One afternoon, he was walking across the field, enjoying the warm spring day, when he was set upon by 3 squires. None were older than 15, yet all were bigger than him. This was their world, as they saw it, and he had no right to be there. They snatched away his spear and knocked him to the ground, cursing him for a frog-eater. Every time they tried to rise, they shoved him down and kicked him when he curled up on the ground. But then they heard a shout.
"That's my father's man you're kicking!"
howled the she-wolf. Lyanna Stark, the young daughter of Lord Rickard Stark, Warden of the North and my father's
Epic.
Lyanna
Love
laid
it,
into the
Lyanna.
squires with a tourney sword.
She's like an
scattering them
Arya.
all. My
I would've
father
liked
was
her.
bruised and bloodied, so she took him back to her tent to clean his cuts and bind them up with linen. There, he met her brothers, Wild Brandon, who led them, the quiet Eddard, and Benjen, who was the youngest of the 4.
That's awesome.
That evening, there was to be a feast in Harrenhal to mark the opening of the tourney, and Lyanna insisted that my father attend, as he was of
Love
high
it.
birth with as much a right to a place on the bench as any other man.
That's nice.
She was not easy to refuse, this wolf maid, so my father borrowed suitable clothes from Benjen and went up to the great castle. Under Harren's great roof, my father ate and drank with his fellow Northmen. A black brother beseeched the knights to join the Night's Watch, to snickers and smiles. Prince Rhaegar sang a song so sad that it brought tears to Lyanna's eyes. But when Benjen teased her for it, she poured wine over his head. Lord Baratheon drank down a night of skulls and kisses in a wine cup war.
Of course.
My father remembered a beautiful woman with purple eyes, who danced with Sir Barristan Selmy and several others. As the end of the evening approached, Brandon Stark asked her for one more dance on his shy brother's behalf, and so Eddard Stark shared the last dance of the celebration with Lady Ashara Dane. Abruptly, the hall went quiet. The Mad King had come after all, and was now entering the hall with his Kingsguard. He hadn't
Oh my
left
god,
the
so he
Red
ruined
Keep
the
in
whole
years,
event.
and none could believe the state of him. His long yellow fingernails, tangled
Ew.
beard, and ropes of unwashed, matted hair made his madness plain to all. Nor was his behavior that of a sane man. For in the blink of an eye, he could go from hysterical laughter to weeping to rage. But when he
Oops, that's
commanded Sir
me.
Jaime Lannister to kneel before him and swear the oath of the Kingsguard before half the lords of the realm, a
Oh,
cheer
wow.
burst
That's
from the
when it
crowd.
happened.
For Sir Jaime was much admired for his courage, gallantry, and skill with a sword. Amidst all this merriment, my father spied the 3 squires who'd attacked him, attending their knights. Lyanna saw them too, and pointed them out to her brothers. I could find you a horse and some armor that might fit, Benjen offered. My father thanked him, but gave no answer. Our people sit a boat more often than a horse, and our hands are made for oars, not lances. Much as he wished to have his vengeance, he feared he would only make a fool of himself and shame his people. Eddard had offered my father a place in his tent that night, but before my father slept, he knelt on the lake shore, looking across the water to the Isle of Faces, and said a prayer to the old gods. The next day in the tourney, the 3 knights whose squires had beaten my father
They
had
died.
seated their opponents and earned a place among the champions. But late in the afternoon, as the shadows grew long, a mystery knight appeared in the lists. He was short and clad in ill-fitting armor, cobbled together from different suits. On his shield was painted a heart tree of the old gods.
Is it him?
A white weirwood with a laughing red face. The mystery knight dipped his lance before the king and rode to the end of the lists, where the 5 champions had their pavilions. You
Who
can
is
guess
it?
the 3 he challenged. Whoever the mystery knight was, the old gods gave strength to his arm. All 3 knights fell before him. None were well loved, so the common folk cheered the Knight of the Laughing Tree, as the new champion was soon called.
I want to know now.
When his fallen foes sought to ransom
thinking
their
it
horses
was
and armor,
our guy.
the Knight of the Laughing Tree's voice boomed through his helm
Her father.
and told them, "Teach your squires honor. That shall be ransom enough." Once the defeated knights chastised their squires sharply, their horses and armor were returned. And so, my father's prayer was answered. The king was furious. In his madness, he suspected a traitor in his midst. Perhaps even the newly made Sir Jaime Lannister, whom he had already sent back to the Red Keep. That night, the king asked Lord Robert Baratheon to take to the lists and unmask the Mystery Knight, declaring him no friend of his. But the next morning, when the heralds blew their trumpets and the king took his seat, the Knight of the Laughing Tree had vanished.
Of
All
course.
they ever found was his painted shield, hanging abandoned in a tree.
I mean, I don't
father's
mind the
tale
story.
ended here.
Yeah.
He never spoke more of Harrenhal, though he must have seen Prince Rhaegar's victory. Some whispered that Prince Rhaegar himself had arranged the entire tourney in secret, as a way to gather the great lords and address his father's apparent madness, perhaps even remove him from the Iron Throne. But when I asked my father about this, he only shrugged sadly. What Rhaegar intended, none can say, but all know what he did.
Interesting. So it could have been
Wow.
their father, but maybe not.
Probably not, yeah, but we have heard different sides of Rhaegar. We've heard bad sides of what he did with Lyanna. Then we've heard good sides that he loved, people loved. I still don't know where I sit with Rhaegar, like whether he was actually a good guy. I mean, according to Barristan Selmy, he seemed like he was a good guy.
Yeah.
But Barristan Selmy was also his Kingsguard, so
He could have only seen the good side.
yeah, who
You don't
knows?
know. But I find it interesting, like, remember the tourneys that we would see in the first season and so? We used to be like, oh my god, that was horrendous. We knew nothing. We
Yeah.
knew absolutely nothing.
So tame, yeah. Especially when we saw the one in House of the Dragon, then we thought that was like
I know.
a big deal because like, and it's like, yeah, that ain't. It doesn't matter.
The other thing that I thought was interesting was that, you know, we knew Mira and Jojen's father was friends with Ned and things like that. But it's just interesting how that night was so pivotal. He met all of the Starks and those siblings, right?
Yeah. And that was their
And-
loyalty.
Yeah. And then Benjen was the one that went past the wall. He became like this half undead. And
Oh yeah, true. And saved Mira.
yeah, so I don't know, like I just love that little like throwback to that and that little full circle moment.
Technically, all the brothers are dead, but Benjen's the only one half alive.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and I mean, never meeting those children before, like you finally meet them, you save them, and for this bigger purpose. Crazy.
All right, and the last one of this very, very big Histories and Lore is Vaes Dothrak by Jorah Mormont. We know he's quite knowledgeable on the Dothraki people, so should be good.
Between the free cities and the bones, between the shivering sea and Slaver's Bay, spreads the Dothraki Sea. Named not for its waters, but for how freely its conquerors roam upon it. A traveler on the Dothraki Sea will find few villages and no farms, because the Dothraki view it as a sin to cut into their Mother Earth with plows and shovels, and the Dothraki know only one punishment. The closest the Dothraki approach to civilization is Vaes Dothrak. Though to outsiders it doesn't look like a city. There are no walls, because the Dothraki believe only cowards hide behind them, instead of facing an enemy blade in hand. But the Dothraki couldn't do that here either. Within the bounds of the city, no one, not even the mightiest Khal, may carry a blade, by order of the priestesses of the Dosh Kali. Not that any enemy would be foolish enough to attack the sacred city of the Dothraki in the first place. Two giant bronze stallions rear over the entrance to the city, their hooves meeting in the air to form an arch, the famous Horse Gate. Through it is the God's Way, but the Dothraki drag the sacred idols of the cities and peoples they've broken. Along one side, stone gods look down on you from cracked thrones with chipped and stained faces, their names lost to time. Across the road, monsters watch you pass. Black iron dragons with jewels for eyes, roaring griffins, manticores with barbed tails poised to strike, and other terrible beasts from every corner of Essos. But there is nothing to fear. If these gods and devils had any power, they would never have ended here. Not all foreign gods in Vaes Dothrak are broken. In the famous eastern and western markets, merchants worship their god of trade with the sufferance of the Dothraki, who themselves don't understand buying and selling. The western market is a great square of beaten earth filled with animal pens, drinking halls, and a maze of stalls and crooked aisles. Even goods from Westeros find their way here, though the merchants who sell them wouldn't know a Lannister from a Frey. The eastern market
Which is kind of nice, though.
a stranger place. The elders of the Dosh Khaleen view it with suspicion, and most Dothraki stay away. They aren't wrong. The great elephants, the basilisks and silver cages, and the striped black and white horses of the Diogas Nile are enough. But I can see how the elders wouldn't want their younger members to see the warrior maids of Hir Kun, who wear iron rings in their nipples and rubies in their cheeks. Or listen
Keep
to
them
the
sheltered
Shadowmen,
from everything.
who cover their bodies with tattoos and hide their faces behind masks and whisper dark secrets for a price. This is all of Vaes Dothrak that foreigners ever know. For only Dothraki are permitted into the inner city, where the Dosh Khaleen live out their lives.
Okay, interesting.
A blood rider, drunk on fermented mare's milk, once told me that the Dosh Khaleen are stewards. They prepare for the day when every rider of every Khalasar shall return to the city. And the Dothraki truly will be one blood and one Khalasar again, under the greatest Khal of all, the stallion who mounts the world.
Yeah.
He will ride to the ends of the
Daenerys
earth and
stillborn
grind nations into
Targaryen.
dust and take the whole world as his herd. Or so the prophecy goes. Yet the world is vast, with many places a horse can't go. The stallion who mounts the world couldn't rear above a mountain range or leap across the sea. Still, the world has been conquered before, just not with stallions.
Yeah.
It's an important emphasis.
Yeah, interesting. So that's kind of why Jorah, when he was there with Dario trying to get Dany back, he was saying, okay, just say that we're from the, like, we're meant to be where the markets are, we got lost. Which again wasn't completely foolproof because it sounds like it's very hard to get into the inner city. So yeah, interesting though.
But it worked out for them in the end.
Yeah, but I do find it interesting that they're trying to keep, I don't know, their ways very primal and not be
like untainted by the outer worlds, the more mystical worlds or materialistic worlds. They're trying to stay very, primal, like you said. I agree.
Yeah, which I don't mind actually, to be fair.
I think it's about staying pure to their roots.
Yeah.
Well, guys, there is 80 minutes of Histories and Lore. This is a big one, this one, especially there was no spoilers, so right through, I am well and truly lored out. A lot of interesting things. I mean, even a lot of that stuff that we're listening to, I think even watching it at the beginning of season 6 might have enhanced season 6's understanding greater, especially parts about the High Sparrow, parts with Euron. There were certain bits and pieces, even around Tullies and Blackfish, there were certain bits and pieces that you really can enhance your knowledge of what was going on and the significance and even understanding the characters themselves.
I do think it was better that we watched it after because it would have been a bit spoilery for me anyways.
I think that's why we watch it at the end, because of the element.
Yeah.
Whereas if we weren't, trying to be super clean on spoilers, I probably would have gotten, maybe a bit more understanding out of season 6 with this added knowledge. But I still think it'll help us for season 7, which is why we've been watching them, because they usually enhances our knowledge of all the little things.
Yeah, and even just like reflecting back on season 6, you really understand people's motivations and things like that.
And
so
solidifying some of the ideas before we move on.
Yeah, for sure. I actually found this one really interesting because there were lots of stories that we kind of hadn't explored before, and I think they're going to be really important going into season 7 and 8. And it was actually interesting. They may have mentioned it before, but I don't remember it solidified in my brain. But the Vaestathrak and their prophecies about the stallion that mounts the world, I didn't think it was, as big as they were saying, because it just looked like they were living their lives, from day to day. They weren't together, but, Dany did come in and she conquered them, and I really enjoyed that aspect. We kind of started with that and ended with that.
Yep. Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed today's History and Lore reaction. If you did, don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys next reaction.
See you guys.